So a very good afternoon, boys and girls, and welcome back to another video. Now, recently I was challenged to put the IBIS to the test in my Olympus E-M1 Mark II. So that's what we're going to do today. Come to the beach, turn the polarizer on, turn the 10-stop filter on, and we're going to do some handheld long exposure photography at the coast. And this is going to test the camera and my patience. So let's see what happens. So first up, I kind of need to get my eye in on this. I don't know whether to shoot aperture priority mode or manual mode. Do you know what? I think we're going to go aperture priority. It's just going to allow me to control less things and let the camera sort of figure itself out, and I can change the exposure duration with the aperture rather than messing around with 3 different settings. So first thing is first, let's try and rotate this polarizer to take some glare off this rock in front of me. I'm going to focus on the stone. There we go. And f3.5 ISO 200 is giving me around 1.5 seconds worth of exposure. So I'm just going to wait. There we go. A little rock wave round the rock. Let's try that again. It worked. I have no idea if it's in focus though. Let's try this again. Boom. Right, well, it's working, but I think I need to turn the 2-second timer off. So I can just time it and press the shutter when I'm ready to, rather than waiting for the camera. Let's try this again now as the water's running out. I don't like this already. This is faff. Alright, so a quick flick through the viewfinder and it seemed to work. The problem I had, I think it's because the camera was so low down, I was introducing a little bit of camera shake in my own hands rather than, having arms tucked in, camera pressed against face really hard and sort of stabilising the camera using myself. So that's going to be the next thing that I'm going to attempt to do. So I think we need to walk down the beach a little bit further, find another subject and just try and refine this technique a little bit more. It's not a bad thing refining a technique, it's just a little bit of fun and a little bit of trial and error. So we'll move down the beach, we'll find another subject and hopefully get a slightly better result than last time. Alright, so just in front of me in the surf there's an old piece of concrete that looks like it's got some ironwork sticking out of it, and there's some old broken bits of concrete around it as well. And I thought for a second attempt it may work okay. So the technique I'm going to use for this is I'm going to open my legs about shoulder width, really bring my elbows in and push the camera against my face. And obviously when you're doing this, don't forget to breathe. If you hold your breath, you'll start to shake a little bit more. You don't want to do that, you want to keep breathing through it. I mean, it's only a second and a half either way, but let's give it a go. So I think we're going to go for a portrait. No, we'll do a landscape, I think. Don't forget some more bits of concrete in there as well. No, I'll tell you what, we'll zoom right in and do portrait. So I'm going to focus right on the concrete slab. Let's have a look. So we're down at a second and a half, f5.3, ISO 200. And I guess, just tuck in and breathe. Let's have a look, try and get one where we've got some of the other bits of concrete sticking out. I can see in the viewfinder that they are relatively sharp, but until you get home, that one wasn't. Let's have a look. Let's try and get that one there. And across. God, this is difficult. I can see in the viewfinder that for the most part they are sharp, but until you get home and throw the images on the big screen, you're never really going to know, but it seems to be working. The IBIS in this seems to be keeping up with the long exposures. I'm going to move. That's all you can really ask for, isn't it? So again, we'll head a bit further down the beach and see what else we can find to take a handheld long exposure photograph of. So one of the reasons I'm so keen to give this a go is to kind of scrap the tripods off a little bit. If I can nail this technique, when I'm doing my long exposures, it means I can leave one tripod in the car, which is great because it's less weight to carry. But I'm starting to find tripods to be a little bit on the restrictive side in terms of where you can shoot, how you can shoot, and what you can shoot. I always find handheld photography to be a little bit more accessible. And if I can screw a couple of filters onto the front of this camera and not need the tripod and just use myself, so to speak, well then that'll free up some compositions, some angles and some shots that will be restricted to staying away from, so to speak, with the tripod. So I'm kind of hoping that the Olympus IBIS in this is really going to shine through today and just give me a little bit of encouragement to try this a little bit more often. I do keep getting in trouble in the comment sections of my own videos for still using a tripod and not taking advantage of the Olympus in-body image stabilisation. So I'm hoping it's going to work fine. I've got an idea for a next photograph. I want to try and get a breaking wave as a long exposure. I can see there's some waves breaking just in front of me, so let's try that. Let's try getting a breaking wave and just see how it turns out. The problem around here is the sand and the silt and the mud. It tends to make the water look a little bit mucky and brown, which doesn't tend to make for the most pretty looking photograph, but as a test, as an experiment, as a technique, let's have a look. All right, so I've just been having a little bit of a play around with things, and I think I've found the best way that I can do this, and it's kind of half long exposure and half panning the camera. So I'm gonna, what are we at? We're at f3.2, which is giving me a little over a half second worth of exposure, and as I'm tracking the wave, I'm panning around with it as well before I get really wet, and that seems to be giving the best results. So let's crouch down and let's just have a little bit of a look. So there's a wave coming there. I think we've missed that one. Yeah, we missed that one, but there's one coming now. So if I focus, and as it's breaking, press the shutter speed and pan, here's that photograph. Have you ever come across a genre of photography and it just feels right? It feels like that is the genre that you are supposed to stick to. It's the one that you enjoy the most, it's the one that comes most naturally, and it's the one that you have more fun doing. Well, that's kind of how I feel about this long exposure photography, but there is something at the back of my brain telling me not to pigeonhole myself into that genre. Yet every time I pick a camera up, the coast is very difficult to ignore, and so are the filters. So I've been kind of going backwards and forwards with this in my mind for the last few weeks, as to whether or not to really just dive into the one genre that I enjoy. But I don't want to pigeonhole at the same time. It's a very strange place to be. I feel the long exposure stuff is where I'm at. It feels natural to me. It feels like it's the genre of photography that I am the best at. Yet for some reason I'm very scared to pigeonhole myself with that when I know full well that this is what I want to do. So I think over the coming weeks on the channel you're going to notice a shift from bouncing around from different kinds of photography, and I'm probably going to start leaning a little bit more full-time into the long exposure stuff at the coast, seeing as though it's kind of what I enjoy. So it kind of feels wrong to come to Spain Point and not take a photograph of the posts behind me. I can't believe how warm it is. It's the end of October and I've got my jacket off. I'm really quite warm. It's a surprise where this little bit of warmth has come from, which has made quite a nice change from the last few weeks, which have been a little bit on the damp and cold side. Now, another thing that I've been wondering about my photography as of late is I seem to have gone down the route of taking photographs for the sake of content as opposed to just taking photographs, if that makes sense. You notice all my videos have several photographs in them, and I feel like I bounce around from place to place to place, to subject to subject to subject, and I don't give each photograph the time it maybe deserves. So another change that you may be going to notice over the next few weeks is less photographs per video and more time spent per photograph. if that makes sense. I really want to sort of shift away from what I've been doing the last few months and really kind of hone in on the individual photographs and the individual genre that I feel that I am best at. So there's going to be more long exposure photography, less images, and I'm hoping that's going to translate to better quality images. Instead of doing what I've done today and walked down the beach just taking a handful of snaps of things, really just sort of hone in on one photograph and spend the time and create the best iteration of that I possibly can. It's a frustration that's been growing with me and my photography over the last few weeks and maybe the last couple of months, and it's something that I've really just needed to hone in on, zero in on what I think has been going wrong for me personally, and really just try and, you know, just sort of focus in on individual photographs rather than a bunch of photographs. So thank you very much for watching today's video. If you have enjoyed it, please do give it a thumbs up. It does help bring new viewers to see my content. And if you liked it a bit more than that, there is a subscribe button below me, and you can press that and you'll see more micro four thirds long exposure photography nonsense every single week. So until the next time, I'm going to love you and leave you and just say peace and goodbye.